6 p.m., September 3rd, 2014. And time to get this special meeting of the Board of Trustees of the San Felipe Del Rio CISD underway. There are 5 in attendance. Dr. Keys is not here. Mr. Chavita isn't here, but will be momentarily. So you have a quorum, correct, Mr. Overfeld?
Yes, sir, we do.
Let the record show that a quorum of the board members are present, that this meeting has been duly called, and notice of this meeting has been posted in accordance with the Texas Open Meetings Act, Texas Government Code, Chapter 551. At this time, if you'd stand for opening ceremonies. First, a moment of silence. And now the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please be seated. Now that we are officially underway in the open meeting portion of the special meeting, if you look on your agenda, you'll notice that the first item is agenda item 8A, Business and Finance, consideration to approve general fund budget amendments for 2014-2015, commitments from fund balance. Ms. Valdez.
Good evening, Mr. Garabedian, Dr. Rios, board members. Before you, I have provided an updated memo from what was included in the packet. This is all of the items that were committed at the August 28th meeting, and now we're requesting approval to add them to the 14-15 budget. So if you turn to page 4, 5, and 6, those are the projects that were presented at the August 28th meeting and by category. So we start with page 4. What you have there is the Construction Citizens Committee project list, where again the original commitment was $25 million. Approximately $431,968 was spent. Not approximately, exactly $431,968 was spent in 13-14, and the remaining is what was committed at the August 28th meeting. Tonight, we're requesting that all of the projects, except for the early high school college, be added to the budget. The early college high school will then just remain as committed. So, and that's the first part of the memo that you have here, where it lists the Citizens Committee's project, where $1.7 million will remain as committed, and the rest will be added to the budget. And as the listings again are on page 4, 5, and 6, and they're listed there by functional category. Okay. On page 5 is the list of the $1 million projects for the facilities, and all of those are requested to be added to the budget, all of those projects. And then on page 6, we have the capital or special request list and the compliance for the salary back pay. For the capital and special request list, there's 2 items that are not going to be added to the budget, which is the furniture conversion for the Student Activity Center and Administration and the E-rate. Those will be added once we approach those projects. And then the salary back pay, at this time, we're also requesting for it to stay as committed and not included in the budget until we have the actual numbers. So that is the same information that is in the memos, which is on page 1 and 2. And if you look at page 3, that will be what our financial statements would look like, where we take our approved budget from the public hearing and what we're requesting to increase the budget by for the committed projects, which is $24,674,150, for a new budget of $104,541,950. $557,351.35, where the projects that we've mentioned that will not be added to the budget will remain as committed. Are there any questions?
Okay, who has a question? Mr. Overfeld?
On function 52 for security and monitor service there, just remind me, because I guess it's been a while since we talked about it there. The entry security for these schools listed there, when we say entry security, what are we doing, Mr. Salinas, again? I forget.
That's improving the single point of entries to those campuses, similar to what we have at Lamar and Reuben Chavita
Okay.
and Garfield.
Okay, so at the big schools like San Felipe Memorial and freshman and middle school and high school, after we do that, the hope is that, because those are big schools, that all the exterior doors would not be accessible after that point from the outside.
Well, they'll still be
In the sense of, I wouldn't be able to walk
channeling,
up and,
yes, folks over to a single point of entry. That'd be correct.
okay.
You have a question?
Well, I mean, maybe I misunderstood that, but it would not be open to the outside. How would,
Teachers have a card.
but how would the students go from building to building?
We're talking about the frontage of, let's pick, for example, the sixth grade campus. Right now, you can walk in the front gate and you can go left, you can go right. So there's going to be a barrier there preventing them from going left or right. They're going to have to be channeled, funneled into a single point of entry. And so we'll do that at the other campuses with fencing or panels or something of that nature to make sure that they're being channeled to that point of entry that we want all visitors to go to.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So how much of this list is different than where we were previous?
I'm sorry, sir, as in from what was approved on the 28th? I'm sorry, on the 22nd at the public hearing?
Yes.
No, it was on the 28th at the last meeting. All the list is completely the same.
Okay.
The only items that we've mentioned that will stay as committed are the ones that we're not increasing the budget by, because those projects either, for example, on E-rate, until we receive the matching funding from E-rate is when we'll request at the budget. However, we do have to have the commitment. For the salary back pay, until we have the actual amount is when we'll request add it to the budget. And the early college high school, also that project wouldn't be able to get started, so we're not adding it to the budget, but remain as committed.
Correct. It's not that, if we move along far enough on the current big projects that we have, then we can start planning for that project, but really we wouldn't engage the architect in that project until possibly February of next year, once we get that current construction underway. But at that point, we're able to come back and recommend that you include those dollars in the budget, if we're that far along.
Right. But the list is exactly the same from the August 28th meeting. This is just the ones that we're adding to the budget.
Another question?
And on a monthly basis, we would provide that supplemental report with general fund. With the general fund financial, we would provide that supplemental report, which would give you the status of each of the projects.
Are we good on this item? Ready That's the recommendation?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Recommendation.
It is the recommendation of the administration that the Board of Trustees approve the Citizens Committee district-wide construction projects, facility projects, and the capital and special request list with a budget increase of $24,674,150 for general fund expenditure budget, and for the remaining projects of $2,688,717 to remain as committed.
Heard the recommendation, is there a motion to accept? Mr. Mesa has motion, Ms. Lozano has second. All in favor by a show of hands? It's unanimous, motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. That brings us to agenda item 9. There are a couple of items under the consent agenda. They're there because they're fairly routine. So 9F, purchase order over $25,000, consideration approved PO. Actually, both are considerations to approve POs. Does anybody want to take one of those items for discussion or questions? Mr. Messi, you have a question?
Hey, just a question. I'm not familiar with this construction company. Is that local or?
Yes, sir.
It is.
It's local.
And, yes, and all they're doing is the parking lot behind the stadium. When a lot of times just people that are of age park there and it's really uneven. So it's already been bladed, but we're gonna put some crushed limestone and they're gonna pack it down. It's a local company.
So have they done previous work?
Yes, sir. That local company used to be our asphalt, Mike has the details on it, but yeah.
Yes, Desert Company's done work for us before, Mr. Mesa. They did the additional parking lot at Ruben Chavita for us. They also did the resurfacing of the freshman campus parking lot.
And Cardwell.
And Cardwell, yes, sir.
Did they go under a different name or?
No, Desert Company?
Desert?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Other questions on either of those two items? Okay. If there are no questions for those two items under the consent agenda, is there a motion to approve the items on the consent agenda? Mr. Overfelt has motion, Mr. Chavita has second. All in favor by a show of hands? Unanimous, motion carries. Okay, that brings us to agenda item 10, citizens to be heard. Ms. Falcone, nobody signed it.
Sounds disappointed.
Very good. Hey, I believe in democracy. Nothing under agenda item 11, nothing under agenda item 12. So that brings us to agenda item 13, facilities and operations. A, consideration to approve the schematic design phase for the CTE Center project. Mr. Salinas, Mr. Martinez. These, of course, are, as everybody knows, these are the items that a couple of weeks ago we tabled more time to look at. So tonight, either we go forward with the recommendations or perhaps direct administration and architects to do some more work on plans, or so this, I think, hopefully everybody's had time to look through everything. Mr. Salinas?
Well, good evening, Mr. Garabedian, board members, Dr. Rios. At our August 21st meeting, we reviewed this PowerPoint presentation. Mr. Martinez presented the 4 options. At this time, we can go very quickly through those 4 options again if you would like, or we can get right down to the side-by-side cost, or however you want us to review that.
Do you want him to run through it again, or do you want to start with questions, or how do you want to do it?
I'm ready to go right into the questioning.
Yeah, you want to go into the questions first? Okay. Can I start?
Sure.
Okay. All right. So, let's kind of take a step back. So originally, the budget for this project was just under $9 million, right?
That's correct.
Okay. 4 options. Option 1 is over that by about 3.5 million.
Let me bring those side-by-side costs. That'll help.
Yeah, that's good. Thanks, Mike. All right, so option 1 is over by 3.5 million. Option 2 is over by 2.3 million. Option 3 is over by 1.9 million. Option 4 is over by 1.2 million dollars. So, how do we get to commitment, so to speak, of a $9 million building, and we overshoot it in each possibility by several $1 million? I'm not quite sure how that happened.
The original review that was conducted through the facility needs assessment did not include interdisciplinary classrooms. That's one item.
Okay. Right. So the recommendation that administration wants to bring is 3, correct?
Yes, sir.
Now, in all 4 of these options, at some part of this process, there were conversations between the architects, administration, and the faculty and program people that would be affected.
Yes, sir.
How many conversations?
No less than 2. Plus the actual programming measurement of the facility. So we had at least 3 to 4 visits to the site, and 2 of those were in visiting directly with Mr. Gonzalez and the staff members, the end users.
Okay. What is the objective of this project? In other words, this is probably a question for Dr. Rios. What is the objective of this project?
There's, Mr. President, members of the board, there's a couple of objectives, and all of them are equally important. The first one I'll address having to do with the actual CTE building. If we look at the endorsement plan and the direction the state is moving, they have career pathways. And if we look at it, for example, in the 3rd year of math or 3rd year of science, they call for, we'll talk about CTE specifically, they call for the endorsement coupled with, for example, a CTE map. So the initial idea, when they started talking about the CTE building, the state really hadn't articulated their vision for the endorsement plan, because the design or the budget that they came out with predates the endorsement process. When they came out with it, naturally it makes sense that we develop it into a full academy. Now, we have to design those math classes so that, for example, if you're doing welding, well, you're not doing welding in a vacuum, you're doing welding and maybe construction math as your 3rd math, and that those work very closely together. So curriculum-wise, one of the main objectives is to provide an academy setting where that would work for each one of the pathways that we do. And that's huge, because that's not, that really hasn't been developed anywhere, but that's definitely the direction the state is going. A second objective, and I would say equally important, is on how we redesign the services we provide to the students. The high school in itself, we can say that, depending on what angle you want to take, you can say that it's really big, or you can say that it's appropriate in size. Most of us would say that it's fairly big in comparison to other high schools. Yet I mentioned to this board and had extensive discussions with the Citizens Committee that really going in the direction of building 2 high schools in our community would never be a good idea. And I shared some examples with them. So how do we continue to service the students under one Del Rio High School umbrella, yet never grow or never have to face a possibility, and I mean within the next 40, 50 years, of building 2 separate high schools? And I shared with them the idea of having schools within schools, the CT magnet and the early college high school. That would allow us to provide services that are in line with the reforms that are happening across the state, as well as maintaining one high school. And I think both of those areas are equally important. The curricular needs for CTE, as well as providing for the safety and eventual growth, possible growth of our city. And I remember at the time I shared that kids going to CTE would be anywhere from 250 to 400 kids in the morning and possibly an equal amount in the afternoon. Eventually, when we recruit enough kids into an early college high school, because it begins in cohorts, we would also grow into having up to 400 kids at the early college high school, which would also pull numbers from the high school, and then we would spread them out and still be one high school with equal services for all of our students. And I won't mention any school districts, but I think I've told each one of you all individually how devastating it has been for other districts that have built two high schools, and then you have two classes of students, and nobody wants to divide a community like that. I think both of those areas are equally important.
Okay. My questions aren't about the goal of the project. That's why I wanted to hear that firsthand. I guess it's how we went from 9 million to $13 million. Take option 3, for example. Total project cost are nearly $11 million, right? With a net square footage of 36, almost 37,000 square feet, right? I mean, stop me when I'm wrong.
No, that's correct.
Okay. All right. Now, this building as described is, construction-wise described as a steel frame with some brick, right? Okay. Across the street are two new buildings. One is 29,000 square feet, and the other is about 6,000 square feet. The exterior material, to me, and I'm not a builder, so I'm not going to pretend that I know, but the exterior material are heavy cinder block construction, and it's fairly ornate. Those two buildings cost less than $7 million. So how did we get to $11 million for a comparably sized building?
I'll speak to that about the square foot cost.
Well, how many square feet do you have? 35,000?
One building is about 29,000 square feet, the other is about 6,000. It's roughly 35,000 square feet.
Okay, so, and you're saying it was $7 million?
It was 6-point-something million dollars, yes.
Okay. So that's right at about $200 a square foot. If it was 35,000 square feet, which is what we have here.
Yet your total project cost for,
Well, the other thing that we're not taking into consideration here is the circulation space.
which is about 25% of the building.
Right. And so that building over there might be 29,000 square feet, but you'd have to back out the circulation space on it.
So circulation space is,
Walls, restrooms, hallways,
so like that big area in each of these designs, it's about 8,000 square feet.
it's about 5,000, 6,000 square feet.
And that 8,000, 6,000 square feet of circulation space is necessary?
No, we were asked to create a collaboration area for the students, and so that's how we created that space. You need the circulation space for the corridors, obviously, to get to the spaces, but that collaboration space in the center, is it absolutely necessary? No. Is it a vital part of 21st century learning environment, small group learning, places for spontaneous, and learning to go on? That's what that space is used for. For kids to come out and collaborate, maybe, the Project Lead the Way is working on a project with the welding shop and they're working together. That's a place where they could go and collaborate. Or you have, like Dr. Rios was saying, you've got a math program that's tied directly to your CTE program, and that they're collaborating out in this space. You're using multiple trades to work together in that space.
Well, okay, so if the total square footage is multiplied by a certain amount dollars, those dollars are impacted by the materials, right? And what's being put in the building.
Right, that is true. That is very true. But, we try to come up with a budget so that we're not trying to spend all of the money. We're trying to get better than that. This is just based on historical data. The other thing that you have to remember about cost estimating is that it's not a science. It is an art. It's very hard to predict the market, and the market today is going up. And I can tell you that a project we bid in an elementary school bid in Toulouse Midway, 16 classroom addition, had a FEMA dome on it. It came in at $240 a square foot. It was about 10% higher than we estimated. But in Corpus, they're having a tough time getting subs to work because everybody's going to work for the oil and gas industry.
Every program that would go into this building is getting more space than they currently have.
That is correct.
Well, we have to qualify that, though. They're getting more space interior, but not necessarily the exterior canopy covered area. I shared with you all on the 21st that the welding program, for example, has over 5,000 square feet of canopy area, which is where they currently do all of their welding. In this plan, over 2,000 square feet of that is actually coming inside.
Moved it inside. The other thing that you got to, I don't know what that other building is. What is the use of that other building? Is it just general spaces?
It's an academic building and an admin building. The 29,000 square foot one is an academic building made up of faculty offices, a library, nursing classrooms, offices, and classrooms set up for DL and distance learning, computer labs. The admin building is mostly administrative offices and a large circulation area.
And one of the things that you have to consider in this building, especially in your welding shop and in your auto shop, is the mechanical systems that are going to have to be in those spaces to change out the air. The welding shop is very expensive, very elaborate mechanical system.
The air circulation in a welding shop is necessary.
Yeah, you got to have exhaust. Yeah, you got to
Well-
have exhaust over each of your welding stations. Sucks out all of the gases and everything that are used at each welding.
If it's inside, as opposed
Right,
to now when it's outside.
Correct, that's correct. But it's all inside. It is all inside.
And each of these faculty, these program people were on board with these designs?
That's what they asked for, and that's what our understanding was. In fact, for the welding shop, Mr. Townsend asked us to go visit a facility in Corpus Christi that we went to go visit, and I took a bunch of pictures of. I could show you that facility if you want. It's quite elaborate. And so we tried to tone it down a little bit because it was a pretty nice facility.
Other questions? I have some more, but I'll let the others go. Mr. Mesa?
You have to understand our position here. We have to be good stewards of taxpayer money, and these are the first projects we're starting with, and we see that amount, and it's way over what we had proposed to spend on it. And that's why the questions come up. I know originally, as far as classrooms, you're saying that classrooms were not part of the original list of items.
The total building square foot was going to be right at 40,000 square feet, Mr. Mason.
The classrooms in the admin area the new admin area are quite a bit larger than what you guys previously had. And where Roger office is now is pretty small, and so it's grown quite a bit in the admin.
And that's why, I'm thinking, just my feeling is that if these are the first projects we're starting with, we're not going to be able to do what the citizens wanted for us to do. And so it just a caution that, we have in the air right now that how this amount came to be. And I mean, I'd love to have option one, but look at the amount that we're over. I mean, it's,
Which is the first thing that we did, the first meeting that we had with your staff, they gave us all of the things that they wanted in their space. And so we came back and we sat down and we came up with option one, and it was 52,000 square feet. And we were like, there's no way that we can afford this building. So we started going through options. We started trying to reduce the spaces that they wanted, but we didn't want to get smaller than what they already had. So we took some space from outside, we moved it inside, got rid of some of the covered canopy areas, made them a little bit smaller because most of the space has been moved in. They don't really need all of that outside space. We just took some educated guesses, educated guesses on what they might accept, so we came up with other options. We can come up with more options trying to reduce it, but to get to where what everybody wanted was a lot of square footage. And so we gave them their wish list option, and we tried to scale it back in an effort to get closer to your budget.
What are the three factors that affect the cost of a building? It's square footage, right? Quality of the materials or the type of materials, and what else?
Time.
Mr. Overfill?
I want to go back to, as we kind of hit on welding, you're talking about, talking with Mr. Townsend there, and then the question was posed about would any of these sites lose space based on the supposed recommendation this evening there. In the option sheet there for square feet that we got back in on the 21st, there for the manufacturing and welding there. I know we talk about moving it inside there, but exterior goes from existing of 5,000 something square feet to option 3, which would be the one presented of 2,600. We'll call it 2,700 square feet there. So covered wise, that's a reduction, right?
Yes.
Tell me when
Yes.
I'm wrong. The welding shop, yes, there's a new 2450 because we're putting an indoor area there. The machine shop goes from 1984 to 1015, so we have a reduction there. Slightly smaller classroom, okay, that's okay. But then total, 8,500 square feet to existing, as it is right now, to 7,364 square feet if we were to go with option 3 there. And again, tell me if I'm wrong there, but that's a reduction from existing, correct?
That is correct. We took some extra, because if you look at the existing, you've got a machine shop, but you don't have a welding shop.
Because all of that's outside right now.
Right, it's all
under the
outside,
cover.
so we moved it inside and shrunk it down a little bit, shrunk down the outside area a little bit more to reduce some square footage in the building.
Okay,
Again.
in that, the welding booths, there are going to be inside, right, in option 3?
Yes, sir.
And are those welding booths compliant with what the state says you have to have for the necessary equipment in there to put an instructor and a student in there?
From the information that we received from Mr. Townsend, yes, sir. He provided all of the specifications through a survey through our CADE director of all equipment that would be placed in this program.
Okay. But overall, in welding, there we're looking at a reduction of 1,200 something feet from what we have right now to option 3, though, size wise.
If you're looking at the 8,500 of
8,500 and the 70.
interior and exterior, that is correct.
The 7,300 and welding itself, of course, because of Eagle Ford and everything else that's going on around us there. That's a very big industry, and they're hopefully here in a year. We should be graduating the first class, Mr. Gonzalez, that would be earning a certificate in that partnership we have with junior college. Is that this year, this coming year, or within?
This May, sir.
This May. So will be turning students out who, right out of high school, through the dual credit program, will be able to go into a job setting there. And I think Mr. Gonzalez at one point had told us at one meeting there that there are a lot of people that want to get into it, but we don't have the room there. We have to actually turn people away. Just to give you statistics, right now there's 330,000 job openings for certified welders within the state. And in the next 2 years, it's expected to go to 2 million there. And through the partnership with the dual credit and the junior college, I can't see reducing the size of that there. I know, like Mr. Mesa said, we'd love to have the Cadillac option there of number one there of 10,000 square feet, but I can't sit up here and consciously and good manner and all that say, yeah, we'll take a 1,200 plus cut to a program that's gonna benefit the area and provide jobs to students, because like we say, and CT is a good thing, because not everybody's college bound there. That's one of my big problems that I have with
certainly
it.
understand that, and we share the same feelings. But in trying to come to our number closest to 8.9 is where that happened. Now, I have started dialoguing with our architect on the adding 1,000 square feet to the machine shop. So that would bring it up to 8,364. Simply because the option 4 that the architect had put in place is actually higher.
Can you pull those images up, please?
The floor plans?
Yes.
You have option, I guess 3, I guess. And while you're doing that, I have another. We talk about taking the welding booths and moving them inside and having to have a scrubber to pull the air out there in a.
That's this blue section right here.
Correct. In a what is basically a residential area there. And even if we forget the residential part, other facilities that our welding teams go to, because they compete throughout the year, there are the welding units inside there, the practice base, because if you took the expensive scrubber out and moved all your bays outside or even converted a lot of the indoor over to more welding spaces, etc., surely that lowers the cost there, and the end user maybe would have a say-so on that there. I don't know if Mr. Gonzalez can speak to that of what they go to competition, if it's all outside, because let's face it, the reality is when they're welding, they're either going to be in a big metal building with no fancy stuff around it, or they're going to be outside in the field there when they're actually doing the job. So I wonder about the cost of bringing it indoors and having to have a scrubber.
My
pull the
understanding,
air.
Mr. Overfelt, from our welding instructor is that this is the facility that they have for competitions. And from the facility that he asked us to go visit, or asked our architect to go visit, it's exactly what you see there.
It's very similar to that setup.
And Mr. Townsend's fine with putting it all inside.
Yes, he wanted, of course, his 5,000 square feet outside too, and we'd love to give it to him, but cost-wise, we have to reach a middle ground.
How high is the bay outside? The roof of that exterior cover?
20 feet, we have 20-foot heights.
20-foot height?
To the working point before it starts sloping up, so it gets higher.
Okay. What's the height of the one out here?
It's low. That's
Lower?
precisely why we're having the issues with automotive.
Okay.
It might be a little bit higher depending on automotive too. It might need to go up to 23 or 24.
Because I know some of the projects that the welding students do are massive things that they do for competition.
And that's another thing that, it's a good point that you're bringing up. I mean, when you're looking at this square footage here, when you're talking 29,000 square foot in an admin type of situation, you're paying for the floors and walls of one floor. In a situation like this, you're paying for really two walls, because it's 20 feet high, it could be almost three walls. It's not really this, it's hard to compare apples to apples because the wall is so tall, which is why gyms cost so much money. If you built a standalone gym, the cost comes in, you're like, why is it costing so much? Well, you're paying for two walls all the way around the building.
Sir, I just want to make a point. I need y'all to either validate or tell me that I'm wrong. But in the existing design, we know that if our welding program is going to grow, there's two things that have to happen. One is we have to have additional square footage. Two, we have to have an additional instructor. There's only so many people that any welding instructor can handle. So if we were to grow in the future and go in that direction where we would have more students in the welding program, does the current footprint that you've designed allow to easily add more cover space outside? Or are we constricted by space at either one of the locations we're considering in that area?
The North Heights side is pretty restrictive. It's very tight. This side is, we counted the parking here. There's 175 parking spaces here on this side. Yeah, we could expand this way and maybe reduce some parking and shove this over and get some more outdoor area here. But this is pretty landlocked because the site is so narrow.
But I'm not talking about right now. If 3-4 years down the line, if we wanted to increase the covered area, could we do it at that point, or is it either we do it now or we don't do it ever?
No, you could do it. We can definitely design it that way. In fact, it would be you know, this is the biggest footprint you have here. The footprint we're showing you is a little bit more shallow on this end right here. And so you could expand out this way too, like maybe add another bay. It might be a good idea for you to create an alternate that adds another bay onto the building, because cost is going to be an issue. It's just the market, today's market.
That was my point. If we could do an alternate to add more space on the outside, should we head in that direction?
Right, and then if you can decide to take it now, or you can take it later on, send it out to bid later when you decide you have enough money to add on to it. But we can certainly, instead of this canopy coming all the way down here, maybe it only comes to the middle of the building here, and then you add the rest of it on there. So, you know, maybe it stops right here, and then in the future, you just come out and add this part onto it. That's not a difficult thing, especially with the type of building type that we're looking at. These areas being more metal building type of construction.
And in the next phase, which is the design development, is when we can start looking at reducing the soft cost and also contingency. And that's why I was starting to have dialogue with our architect on that square footage, so that if in the next phase that we can add it, we will certainly add it and bring it back to y'all in that phase. Because out of all of the footprints, the manufacturing welding is the one that has the most variance. The second one would be the automotive program. Also the same issue. They have almost 5,000, not quite there, 4,724 outside covered area. It's not usable for them. And so in visiting with the automotive instructor, he was very comfortable with the 2243 outside area. Of course, if he could get more, he'd love to have it, but most of his work is going to be indoors in the bays, because if you look at the current bay square footage is 2,833, and the new footprint for option 3 would be 3,900. So he would actually gain more interior bay area.
Can you go back to the image for 3, or actually any of them, 1, 2, 3, 4?
Here's one.
Okay.
Let's go back. There you go.
So when we're talking about space, right, provided to automotive or to Project Lead the Way or the electrical trades, what I keep noticing on these options, go to option 2. And go to option 3. common area is enormous. Or it's not. Or am I imagining
Cause
that?
you said that was 8,000 square foot?
It's, this
More or
one is like 6,000 square feet here.
Let's say
Okay, wait,
three.
hold on a minute. Wait,
Sorry.
no, okay, hold on. So, on, well,
This one is 8,000, you're right. Says that 8135.
now, I understand, I have taught a little bit here or there. I understand the idea of bringing students together, different disciplines and all that, and collaborative learning. But you said that one is 6,000, right?
This
That
one-
small area?
This one here, this one is the largest, it's 8,000 square feet. This one here,
Okay.
we reduced it down, let me see what this one is right here, to 5,800 here. And this is really the one, I think, that we're gonna try to design around. I mean, we were going to try to design around, because I agree with you, 8,000 square feet seems like a lot.
Well, look at it two different ways, right? 8,000 square feet on these net amounts is like 20 or 25% of the building. From a dollar perspective, you're telling me $200 a square foot, so 8,000 square feet is like $1.6 million.
You gotta remember that in your high bay spaces like these down here in this area, these aren't really $200.
Those are more expensive.
Those are more
Right.
expensive,
But
just,
either way,
over-
that mall area is costing.
it's gonna cost you money, yes, either way.
Yes, sir.
Other questions?
It's just big,
Mr. Chavita?
6,000.
It's, sorry that I wasn't here last time, but I spent a couple of hours today with Mr. Salinas, and thank you, Mr. Salinas, it was very informative. And I think my biggest thing is that, since I've never been vocational, the space and the function versus the functions, or the function versus the space that we got, as long as the gentleman out there and his crew, Mr. Sanchez, agrees on it, I think the next thing would be, which one do we go? Either from 1 to 4, and looking at it, even from the space in between there, that commonplace there, on 3, was that where we was reduced to
Yes, sir.
6?
Yes,
I mean, 5, well,
Right.
I think that would be the best thing, because, who knows, we can maybe expand there, doing something else there as we go along. And of course, when we start saying that, what if, we grow, et cetera, well, if we do grow that much more, we're gonna need another high school, so we'd be thinking about something else. So,
One of the other numbers that you need to look at on your option or your comparison sheet is the very first column line that shows the existing area square footage. Even if we just built everything exactly the way it is right now, you'd still be $300,000 over budget. And that doesn't give you your classrooms, which are, $200 a square foot would be another $750,000. So now you're at $1 million just adding the classrooms in there. Then add the admin on top of that, the extra admin that you have. You're probably looking at another $500,000. So you're at 1.5 million. You're really looking very close at option number 4. And we can reduce the commons area, that's not a problem, and take some more square footage out of the building and look at doing it even more.
The minimum of 2 conversations that were had with Project Lead the Way, automotive, welding, is that the norm for building, for a programmatic change of this magnitude, to have 2 conversations?
What typically happens is we come through and we go through the program and we figure out the spaces that we want. Right away, when we went through the program and identified the spaces that the end user groups wanted, we realized the building was way too big, so we started having conversations with Mr. Salinas about the budget. We were concerned about the budget. So we started coming up with options to bring the cost down and try to get a floor plan that was, somewhere in the middle ground. Eventually, we should have more conversations with them. I mean, we're gonna have to come in and go, where do you exactly want all of this equipment? Is this all of the equipment? Now, they sent us equipment list, and all of these spaces have all the equipment in it that they wanted. or that they sent us. But no, and typically two, no, but right away we were already over budget. So we needed to start talking with Mr. Salinas about what did we want to do? Because, the end users always want the big sky. They want everything, So somebody has to come in and mediate that for us. We'd love to do it, but it's really kind of a situation between Mr. Salinas and the end users. We don't really have the budget to do that.
Well, actually, I think Ms. Lozano wanted to.
Mike, the size of the high school cafeteria, do you have any idea how big that is, square footage wise?
No, ma'am, I sure don't.
You can take a guess.
You want to?
How many students do you feed in there per lunch period?
That was gonna be my next question.
700
700 per period.
per lunch period?
But it's
Okay.
got two
I mean, it can
areas.
fit 700.
It's got two
Okay, so we
areas.
can fit
So that's about
700.
10,000 square feet,
Okay,
almost
so
11.
That's upper level and lower level, am I correct, Dr. Garza?
All of them, we've had a lunch where it's 700 kids and they sit
Upper and lower, right?
cafeteria.
Right. What I'm trying to get at is, we're planning on having how many students at the CT? 300?
I'd say no more, 300 would be optimal, no more than 400, depending on how it grows.
You have classroom space for about 250, 10 classrooms, 25 kids per classroom. That's 250 kids.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with Mr. Garabedian that open area is, if the high school, of course, it's set up differently with all of the tables and all of that, but that's a huge space, 10,000 square feet for half of the number of students.
Just, let me interject this. See, but you're talking about lunch, but, that area, if we start reducing it, that area, from what I see, is, you're gonna have some exhibits, et cetera, at that place, so if you reduce.
If we look at 250 kids and trying to feed 250 kids, you're gonna need a lunch area of about 3,700 square feet, 3,800, let's say 3,800
But
square.
we weren't gonna do that.
But I have to point something out.
But if you wanted to have people in there, up to about 5,000. So somewhere between 38 and 5,000 square foot should be plenty
And
of space for you.
And the faculty that we're talking about, like Mr. Billadu, Mr. Davis, Mr. Townsend, they were okay with this large mall area in that building? They
We-
saw the utility of it?
We didn't get that far in the conversations with them.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
That's why I
I
had to
mean,
ask
it-
Okay, would you, I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
We did not get that far in the conversations with them about the collaboration areas.
We focused on their space.
Ms. Lozano?
I just wanted to say something before you interject, Dr. Rios. It appears that what we are trying to achieve by creating and building this new academy is a totally different shift. It's a paradigm shift. It's not going to look like our high school. It's not gonna look like the schools we have anywhere in town. So going to our teachers who are so accustomed to a classroom setting may not give you the feedback or the responses that we really are hoping to move to. I mean, it's a totally different learning environment. I mean, I know you know that. It's, I don't know how to,
Well, I think that's,
I'm concerned that it's too large.
We can reduce it.
oh, time out. And obviously, it's her decision to reduce it at the end of the day. We'll go with what y'all decide, but there's some things that I pointed out at the beginning that are important to consider now. Two things. One, I'd like to follow up on what Ms. Lozano said. When we talk to a welding teacher, for example, or any other teacher in the unit, they're talking about, their craft and what they're doing. But as the instructional leaders that are tasked with being the stewards of all our educational programs, I can't look at it just at welding, but I have to look at the whole state plan and how they're articulating the endorsements and that academy type of learning to be able to couple those things. And very respectfully, that's not Mr. Townsend's job to consider that, because I have Dr. Garza and Mr. Gonzalez and myself to be able to plan for in the future for that. The second thing that I asked them to consider, and I shared with the committee as well, is that we have to design a building with options for the future. Because let's say that in the future, the option is to create that into a true standalone magnet school. If we don't provide that cafeteria type looking space, then we're really tying ourselves into having an awkward building in the future. So there again, one of my jobs is to be good stewards of our resources along with the board, and I take that job very seriously. But the other part of that is to have some type of vision for some needs in the future. And you have to design the core space to be bigger than the classroom spaces should you grow into a different design. So if y'all want to reduce the mall area and that'll save us some money, okay, I see the need. But 10 years down the line, 5 years down the line, 20 years down the line, if that was to be a standalone academy with its own number and everything, then we're really in an awkward situation where we cannot do that. Now, is that worth the extra $500,000 investment that this will cost, or $250,000? My recommendation to the board would be absolutely yes, because it's a one-time expense. But given the budget, obviously we're going to follow the wishes of the board. I just want y'all to know the angle I'm looking at it, because I'm the one that visited with the committee and presented this future possibility of a standalone campus. Now, having said that, I'm okay with I'll work with whatever your wishes are.
Mr. Mesa?
I don't like option 4. I like option 3, but the cost is almost $2 million. And so there's got to be some give and take. And I understand, the commons area, I still don't know what the functionality of it is. How is it going to function? I mean, is it a gathering?
It's a collaborative space.
So they would all, at one point, let's say, be all together in that area?
No, not necessarily everyone there, but maybe 2 programs.
And it could be used for central gathering too, like if you decided to have a program where
Presentations.
you needed to pull all the students together. I would recommend that you do that you have a projector set up out there, or TVs or something, so that if you had to give a mass presentation to the entire campus, they could all gather there. That would be ideal.
Okay, and I could see that happening. The only thing is, there's a lot of square footage there, 5,800 square feet. And so for me, I'm looking at option 3 and I'm thinking, this is what I want, but it's not feasible with the budget that we have. And so, I'm in agreement with my colleagues here, that the commons area needs to be narrowed.
Let me ask you this. This is the first run at a set of plans, right? Have we given ourselves enough time to do the research and investigation? Is this enough for what we're trying to accomplish? When did these conversations start? You said there were just 2, right?
We started in, I can't remember exactly when we started, but several months ago. It was May 20, in May.
2 months, 2.5 months.
Yeah, we go through that process, Mr. Garabedian, along with obviously the direction and expertise from our architect of similar facilities that they've worked on in the past. And so that's where we end up developing what needs to go into the actual space. Of course, our end user is extremely important. They're very informative in what they do, and that's where we're at this point with the information they have provided us. And the only space that we have a slight problem with is the welding manufacturing area.
Okay.
All the other spaces,
No problem.
there's no problem in the dialogues that we've had with the staff.
a statement, I don't think anybody on this board is opposed to the CTE building, right? I think we can all clearly say that this is something that we are committed to, that is priority. And that's why we're asking questions. Does auto body get more space? Does Project Lead the Way get more space? And space means hopefully adding more kids, right? More opportunity. So it's not a case of this program's getting this or this program's getting, it's really a case of, is this, are we comfortable with moving forward with this? Or would we like to see maybe something a little bit different, knowing that this is still a possibility, right? Or what would a variation of 3 look like? Mr. Cavito?
Let me ask, maybe we're looking at this central area as being an area that is too big, but our gym, it's about, what is it, 90, it's, what's the size of this building here? More or less.
11,000 square
Well,
feet.
the reason I'm bringing this up is because when we say 5,600, we think that it's a big area. It is big. But in terms of putting kids and putting exhibitions there, it's not. Picture yourself in the gym. That's more than 5,000 square feet. Is it that big? Is it? To get 400 kids in there, exhibitions, that type of thing. So I don't really think it is that big.
When we talk about the needs and the overall, like you said, Dr. Rios there, and like you said, Mr. Salinas, about the welding and really auto mechanics being the ones that they're the ones taking their sites or their areas are ones taking the major hit on each step down. It's a very negligible hit for electrical and building trades and Project Lead the Way and robotics and all of that there. And they're all great programs because they serve a very valuable asset to the community later on, but those are the only 2 that are getting reduced and kind of the proverbial short end of the stick there. If like I said, if there was a revision of 3 where we maybe reduce the commons a little bit, there we could add back to automotive and welding. And I know it's bigger, the walls are bigger, etc., and that raises, but all the others, they're staying relatively the same.
That's why I suggested, sir, that we could build it as an option, and then once we do the construction documents, if there's more money, and we can add that covered area on the outside, and if not, we always have the option of adding it, or allocating more money for it in the future.
The areas that are short is this covered area for automotive right here, and this covered area here for welding.
And the actual welding blue book,
The shop
thinking
areas.
automobiles. The shop area there has been reduced in that one compared to the other ones too. So covered and indoor, right?
Correct, for option 3, yes, sir.
Ms. Lozano?
Let me ask a question. Why wouldn't there be any office space in each of those areas? Manufacturing, architecture, blah, blah, blah.
It's been incorporated into their main lab area after having those discussions with the staff. I'm not going to say it was 100%, but the majority of them indicated that would be just fine. That's the way the new buildings are being built.
So there's really no privacy, no area for them to actually take a student aside and have a private conversation with them?
No, ma'am.
They'd have to go to,
To the hallway like the science teacher would, or the English teacher, or the math teacher.
and then why did we, for the administration space, currently we have 530 square feet, and with option 3, we're going to 24. almost 2,500 square feet.
Well, that's because right now, currently, the standalone magnet program would need to have an administrative area. Currently at the high school, we don't have a separate administrative area. That square footage is strictly the office areas that are currently occupied by the director and his staff.
Then storage, typically you hear people say, we never have enough storage space. So why would we minimize storage space?
In the administration or,
Down here as well, there's no storage.
Architecture and construction.
Right.
Maybe that's already like what you're talking about. Maybe that's already incorporated into,
You have tool storage and
Whatever they
material
have,
storage
yeah.
in architectural. You have tool storage and material storage in each of the programs.
So the line items of storage, in existing for 138 and 70, there, that, what is that storage then? Because I see the tool one and the materials, but what are the line items, storage of 70 and 138 in the existing building, and then, nothing there? What's getting eliminated there?
In,
that's inside the Bay Area.
Uh-huh.
Right now, he partitioned it off for some
yeah, so we just relabeled
specialized
it.
equipment.
Yeah,
And what we did is we increased his actual
Rolled it.
Bay Area.
yeah,
Rolled it over to, okay.
yeah, rolled it
Okay.
into the other spaces.
Okay.
Yes, sir. And what's not shown here for storage in those bay areas, since they are 20-plus foot tall, over their classroom area, which is not going to be 2 stories tall, we're going to install a way, yes, for them to store material
the
or
gyms,
things
yeah.
up on the top.
and then my last question, the conference room. You went from the existing 100 to 393, so almost 400. If there's such a great big room where people can meet, why wouldn't they be able to use that area?
Are you in the conference for the administration? Again, that's existing, what he currently has there, which is small. This conference room that we're referring to is this one right there,
Enough for 12 people.
which is for the administrator of that campus to actually meet with staff.
So they wouldn't be able to use the collaboration area?
The staff could use the collaboration area, yes.
Those are all my questions, thank you.
Going back to, it was May that you started the discussions, right? It's a couple months later now, 2.5 months later. When you've been in, I guess, negotiation or whatever you'd call this, dialogue with other districts, is that time frame the same that's standard? I mean, within a couple months, this is it, we're ready to go?
It's about the same, but like I said, once we got into the programmatic stage and we met with the user groups and the building grew to 52,000 square feet, we had to start having conversations about how we're gonna get this thing back in budget. And so we had 2 meetings with them. The first one was to go out there and measure the spaces and talk about the things that they wanted, which got us to the 52,000 square feet. The second meeting, we came out and tried to talk about reducing some of the spaces, and they were like, we don't really want to do that.
So the first meeting was
We talked about the offices, about getting rid of the offices too.
So that first meeting was a discussion about needs
Right, yeah, and space, yes.
and space.
I can tell you that in our very first conversation with Mr. Townsend, he wanted a 100 by 200 foot building just for welding. That's 20,000 square feet. That was a lot of space, and I was like, okay, well, we'll see what we can do. And so we went out and visited the place that he asked us to go look, and like I said, we tried to make this space as close to what he was looking at or what he saw over there.
looking at option 3, this little
The
table,
cost.
that 1.9 over, and I know, I'm not trying to put the cart before the horse. Does that include the demolition cost?
Yes.
So if that demolition cost wasn't there, and I believe it was 1.2 or 6 million,
We have
It was
that
93.
comparison
I thought it was
over,
93.
over here. Well, let me back
Turn
up.
back.
It was demolition, 180,000.
I don't know why I thought it was a million.
Yeah, here are the cost impacts if we look at an alternate site. And of course, these are very preliminary because we haven't received all the information. But if we go with that number, just for discussion's sake, we're down here to 1.27.
And these costs already include your contingency there, okay? Where would, I mean, we already, do we have, Yanakani, the 1.9, I guess, for option 3? That's already the money we have set aside for this project.
I can answer that. In the board update I sent y'all on Friday, I talked about considerations on which programs or projects to postpone to make up the difference for option 3. And I highlighted a few in yellow. If we move forward with this recommendation, we will recommend.
Is that this one?
Yes. Well,
No, there's another one, right? There's
Yeah,
one
I
that's
handed
got the
that out
items
separately. Yes,
sidelined.
they have it.
This one.
What we would recommend tonight is that we postpone the roofing at Calderon, because they've already had some work done there where we believe that it can sustain for 500,000. The renovation of the 600 wing at Del Rio High School, that's 930,000. And then we would recommend that we take the additional 494,000 from the unallocated 1.8 million, 1.860.
So we would deplete that money we have set aside?
Well, we would
Yeah.
borrow.
If we actually
Yes.
postponed
Yeah,
all of these?
we would only leave approximately 1.4 in the
Unallocated.
unallocated money. Allocated for construction,
Right.
but unallocated to specific projects. Yes, ma'am. That would be our recommendation. The only thing I would, I guess the only concluding statement I would have to the board is that the needs of each individual program absolutely have to be met. The space is going to be debatable. At this point, the only thing that I would see that we could cut back on is that common area space, and how much would that save us? Anything that we remove from the commons and we add anywhere else doesn't save us money, it increases the money. I would like to see the common area stay just because of future needs of the building that might arise, and I would hate to constrict those options. But like I said, I'll go and implement whatever the wishes of the board are. I think that it's prudent, though, to build options to expand the programs, but at this point, we're not ready to expand them. I think that we can build options to where we do it, and if the bids come in favorable, well, then we can add the what do y'all call them, subs?
Alternates.
Alternates, the alternates.
Yes, sir.
But we really can't give any more covered space, for example, to welding. The cost would dramatically increase, even if we substitute it for the covered area. But we can build an alternate to do that if the money comes in favorable. In respects to the automotive, even though we might be limiting the square footage, the usable square footage is gonna be increased, because there is no way that they can have 5 vehicles in there on lifts right now. And how many bays are we recommending for automotive?
There was 5.
I would believe it was 5, Dr. Dick.
And in this design, all of them would be usable. Right now, there's no way they can get 5 cars up there on the lift. There's just no way,
One for
because of how awkward it is, and just really wasn't built for that.
Actually has 6.
6, okay? there's no way we do 5 vehicles now, right, where we're at, in this type of environment. I think that what's, and really for this phase of the project, this is really all we're talking about is space. The design as to where they're gonna want the equipment, well, that comes in the next phase. But I don't see us adding more square footage. I'll just remind the board, we don't have to do the classrooms, but if we don't do the classrooms, then I really don't see a need for building a CT wing, because
That defeats the
it
purpose of the
defeats the
academy.
whole instructional purpose of it, the whole academy purpose of it. And I would just encourage the board to look at the future of what this building may be used for, because things could change. And this is a one-time expense. And we've thought about it. We've been talking about it with the public since we started. But the discussions that lead up to this conversation precede that by a lot. The thought process precedes that by a lot. That's our recommendation.
Just as a reminder, for me, Dr. Rios, this was one of the projects that the Facilities Committee voted for,
Yes, ma'am.
to build it as an academy.
We presented the whole concept of having electives in CT coupled with areas for instruction, and having a true, and even presented the possibility of the future having to be a standalone academy magnet school in the future. Certainly not the area right now. Obviously, if we were to do that, those type of academies don't have football with them, they don't have band with them, and that's why we just hold off yet, that we're not there yet. We may never want to go there.
Okay, you said we may never want to go there. If we choose to go that route, when would you envision this being a magnet? 5 years, 10 years, 20 years?
In the sense of being an academy where you have the instruction in for example, a CT math class, that's now. In the sense of it being a magnet where it's just a school with its own PEIMS number, that's hard to say. It would just depend on the growth of the community, the shifting in projects or endorsements that would be needed out there. So that's hard to say. At this point, my recommendation would be that we never go there, because we want kids to participate in the whole school program. But it's a possibility that it could happen in the future for smallness. That's very possible, and I'd just like to keep that option. And I think we can make good use of the space as projected now. I agree. Welding would need more space in the future. We can build that as an alternate, and maybe even do it now if the construction goes through. But I'd hate to say, no, we're gonna do it, and then not end up doing it. I'd say let's do it as an alternate with this current design.
So help me understand, an alternate is if we can figure out how we're gonna pay for it, it would,
No, not necessarily.
No?
An alternate is if the bid numbers come in better than we expected, and you end up with some extra money left. For instance, if it comes in at $175 a square foot, you might be able to get that extra bay on both the automotive and, it just depends. That's what the alternate does, because it kind of gives you some leeway in, because like I said, estimating is not a science, it's an art. So you want to be kind of conservative about what you're doing. And so it's better to have an alternate in case you can't afford it.
But it also allows you to do it in the future.
Yeah, and you can do it in the future too. You already have the plan that you can build to for the future. That's true.
but things won't be getting any cheaper in the future. I
No.
highly doubt that.
Yeah, I know.
And if like
They're not.
what Josh
Okay, it's now 9:50 PM, September 3rd, 2014. The Board of Trustees will now reconvene in accordance with the Texas Open Meetings Act Texas Government Code, Chapter 551, Subchapter D and E. No action was taken in closed session. So now that we are reconvened to open session, agenda item 17A, consideration to approve the personnel report to include the following: new hires, district vacancies, retirements, resignations. Dr. McNamara.
Good evening, Mr. Garabee and members of the board and Dr. Rios. The administration proudly recommends Ms. Velma Pettis for a CTE health science teacher at Del Rio High School this evening.
We've heard the recommendation. Is there a motion to accept? Ms. Lozano has motion. Mr. Chavita has second. All in favor by a show of hands? Unanimous. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Agenda item 17B, consideration to approve salary adjustments to include the following: justification, service credit, master's degree. Dr.
Mr. Garabee, members of the Rios. The administration at this time recommends that Mr. Leo Sadler, our peace officer, receive a salary adjustment due to a certification change in which he received his peace officer intermediate license.
Heard the recommendation. Is there a motion to accept? Mr. Chavita has motion. Mr. Mesa has second. All in favor by a show of hands? Unanimous. Motion carries.
Thank you.
All right, that brings us to agenda item 19. Being no further business before the board, is there a motion to adjourn? Mr. Overfeld has motion. Mr. Chavita has second. All in favor by a show of hands? Unanimous. Motion carries. We are adjourned.